Hey Max, how you doing?
Hey, Turpal. Doing great. What about you?
Oh, I'm so stoked. We're finally launching our content, and it couldn't be better. So for anyone that's watching, for anyone that's joining us on our YouTube channel, on our socials, my name is Turpal. I'm here with Max Soul today, the founder of of Arcane Finance, head of the product and strategy. And today we're going to be discussing all things privacy, blockchain, and compliance, and what Arcane Finance does with that specifically. And we gotta give the people some food for thought first and let them know who you are, what you're building at Arcane. And so please take it away. Tell us about yourself and what
Oh,
you're doing with Arcane.
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, Turpal. Yeah, my name is Max, and well, I've been in on-chain privacy for over 2.5 years.
Mm.
So our team started building privacy tech when it wasn't very fashionable back in the day. And well, my personal background is in software engineering and leading software development teams. So started in fintech, then moved to crypto. Now, like somewhere in between. So yeah, our company builds on-chain privacy solutions and operates. For example, our DEX on Alio blockchain processed over 1 million transactions already. Our DEX on Fuel blockchain processed over 200 mil in volume.
Wow.
So yeah, we actually spent quite some time in the industry with my co-founders, and yeah, we had to we were evolving with crypto, evolving with how the privacy is understood in the world of a blockchain, and yeah, that's why now we started really being laser focused on privacy and compliance, so intersection of both things. And I personally think this is one of the biggest unlocks in crypto. So once we have both privacy and compliance in place, so many companies, so many institutions and people will finally be able to use the crypto in its full power.
Mhm. Wow. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And with the amount of transactions processed, I can't even imagine how far that goes. But um, leading to my first question, of course, it's going to be about the transparency in crypto. And, when it essentially emerged, it was transparency as a foundation of crypto because there are open ledgers, public transactions, visible data help people believe in the system when no one knew if it actually survive. But the industry matured, and in the transparency, we see best design for finance. And I kind of want to ask you, do you think that total transparency in crypto is actually a mistake? What do you think about it?
Well, I think, as you correctly mentioned, transparency in crypto was a very important stage in
Mhm.
development of this technology. We wouldn't be here where we are today with all these like over 2 trillion, I believe now,
Wow.
total market cap. Um, and yeah, that was important. It's like with humans, kids first go to kindergarten, they go to school, and they have later then graduate and become adults. And I think now we are approaching this stage when crypto has to leave kindergarten
Mhm.
and at least go to school. And transparency was a really an important foundation for crypto back in the days and even today. But now I think the whole industry evolved first to the level of understanding when we can have both privacy and decentralization. So privacy doesn't mean the system is centralized, and at the same time, we know now how to build things that are private yet compliant,
Mhm.
which is again a huge thing for regulated entities, institutions, enterprises, and all the large capital that should come to crypto.
Mhm. Oh, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And I liked your comparison to the kindergarten. I think it was pretty similar to how a lot of other technologies and a lot of other businesses and innovations came through. especially with banking. People were, I think, inadequately prepared for that revolution, because if you go from cash, why do I need to give the money to the bank, and I have it on this card? What if
Yeah.
that card gets blocked? And it's the
Yeah.
1,000-year-old discussion already in crypto. But yeah, that made a lot of sense to me. And now I think I want to focus more on Arcane, because when we talk about financial systems, of course, privacy and compliance, they're very important. They're like the foundation of everything when it comes to finance, but they also feel like two opposing forces on the other hand, because privacy is essential for protecting sensitive data. But again, on the other hand, compliance
Yeah.
requires that oversight and accountability. And I think most systems today solve this by like storing vast amounts of sensitive data on plain text or somewhere in a data center, or they create massive risks for leakage and abuse. But Arcane, of course, takes a different approach to solve this problem. And before we dive into the details of that, I kind of want to start with the basics and ask what Arcane is, how does it work, or simply said, what it does in plain English.
Yeah. So yeah, you highlighted quite an important thing, that really people saw privacy and compliance as two opposite things, and we do not believe it is true, right? And it is true that it took quite some time for the industry to figure that out, that these two things can easily coexist. And so the system can be private, compliant, and yet decentralized. Because, well, every bank is obviously, well, not every, but most banks are compliant and pretty much private. So external observers cannot see what's going on in the bank's accounting system. And yeah, it just took some time to figure out how to rebuild this in the decentralized environment. And I can say that we are now kind of on the forefront. I'm not claiming we are the only team. There are very, very talented, very cool, amazing actually teams working in the same space. Just because, yeah, it's crucially important so that we make to blockchain available to big institutions and enterprises.
Bit of a slip there, Max. You're back.
I'm back. Awesome. Yeah. So I was saying that it's incredibly important now to enable access for institutions and bigger enterprises to the world of blockchain, and they need privacy, because that's how business works. You cannot disclose all the operations that you have to your competitors, to hackers, to everyone. But at the same time, being a regulated financial institutions, you have to be compliant.
Yeah.
And this is the thing we are solving with Arcane Stack, that basically has this is a multi-chain, compliant, ready privacy stack. So we have an auditing module which can be plugged into any privacy stack, so be it ZK, FHE, or something else. And we enable auditability, selective disclosure, case investigations, and so on. So all the things that like all the compliant departments will feel is very familiar to them, and that they definitely need to operate in a private environment. Yeah, so this is basically Arcane's main product. And the other product is when we come to the blockchain that is not private on its own. Let's say we are working with Stellar now. We are working we are building on Solana, and there we are also delivering our own privacy stack, ZK based stack that is compliance friendly. So it seamlessly integrates with another module that I described that enables auditability. And with a full stack, so let's say our stack is active on Stellar, it means that any institution, any company can plug into this stack and have access to private payments, private payroll, private transactions, transfers, whatever, in a compliance-friendly manner. So with selective disclosure, following travel rule, and all the regulations that are present in different countries. So this feels like pretty much endless job to make sure you are covering all the requirements that can possibly arise in different jurisdictions. Because this is a very tricky part of what we are doing.
Yeah, and especially so for blockchains, because I mean they haven't been around for that long in a tech sense, because again, crypto is still very new in a grand scheme of things, and I think with that application, with the regulations, privacy and compliance, they can both intersect. And speaking of privacy and compliance intersecting, of course, the question of backdoor inevitably comes up, because again, if we're talking about privacy and compliance, regulations are also a big part of that question. And of course, no one wants this system where regulators and operators can access everything behind the scenes without checks or balances. And Arcane is, of course, as you said, tackling this issue head on, aiming to balance this legitimate oversight, with privacy and security. And that raises the question about how Arcane avoids this pitfall of becoming just another backdoor for surveillance. And I guess the point question is, are you basically building a regulator backdoor?
Yeah, I think just quickly answering what you mentioned, is that we do not think that any single player, even it's like the most important regulator in the world, should just have unconditional access to all the data. So it's not the future we want to live in, not the world we want to live in. And that's why we never store anything in a plain text. Every sensitive data is encrypted, and we do not disclose data. Every disclosure is a very serious process that requires usually confirmation from multiple parties that the reason why this data is requested is truly important. And it is it's because of some regulator requests and so on. And we only disclose things that are important for this particular request. So we do not, as we know, some of the compliance technologies, when usually you have some private blockchain, for example, and as an afterthought, they figured out, they realized we need some form of compliance. We'll be sharing our review keys. But this means you are giving away the privacy of your users. You are kind of betraying the values of your blockchain, because now all this data is used by some third party, and you cannot control if this view key is leaked. It's you cannot take it back, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we think that it's really important to design the compliance mechanisms from the very beginning, right? So they are built into the system, and you can reveal the information partially. You're revealing only what is important, what needs to be revealed, and you are sharing it for a certain amount of time. So you are not giving access to everyone, to access everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best way to look at it, because again, if there are tens of millions of people using a product, you don't need to sacrifice their security for this very select few people that are actors. And God knows there are many examples of that in the world with certain technologies, and it's really
it's pretty often this is used as an excuse for regulators. We are protecting kids, so you have to give up your privacy, guys, right? We do not believe. So we believe in compliance, but in a sense when it helps the humanity, I'd say, right? Helps to get to some hackers, helps to research some crimes and so on, but not just to spy on people without any limits.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I think the best example here is the police force in the USA. They can't legally search your house unless they have a warrant. but imagine if they did. Like anytime you can just come around and see what people are doing, and I think that's like a pretty good example to mention here. But we discussed financial technologies, and of course there are many layers to this with privacy protocols, compliance tools, settlement systems, and infrastructure. That's going to be part of my question. But all of them, I mean, each of them play this unique role, but they often overlap or like complement each other maybe. And from what I heard, Arcane operates at the intersection of privacy and compliance. But what really is Arcane? Is it a privacy protocol, a compliance tool, or infrastructure altogether?
Yeah, I think so. We are kind of a vendor for private compliance software. So we are bringing in the infrastructure that enables large capital to enter large institutions to come to this certain blockchain. This is mostly what we are doing. So we have software that just knows how to operate in compliant, friendly way, and so we build this. We keep developing this, and we are operating this. We help onboarding bigger institutions. We help onboarding all the different use cases for privacy, for compliant privacy, like payrolls. Paying salaries is like super straightforward thing.
I like that part a lot, actually, about paying salaries. Yeah. For people that work in crypto, that's like the best thing they can hear.
Yeah, exactly. So not knowing how much your colleague is getting, and like the colleague wouldn't know how much you are getting. So this just makes so much sense. So enabling these use cases such as payments, transfers, I think, so basically the first thing crypto was created for, just to be able to store value and like transfer this value to other people. This is what our privacy and compliance tech enables. So we integrated with a bunch of blockchains already. So again, Stellar, where we have our own ZK pool. On Solana, we have a slightly different setup. So there we also have our ZK pool, and these ZK pools can be created on demand. So you can either connect to a shared pool, or as a company, if you want to a higher degree of isolation from everyone else, you can deploy your dedicated privacy pool with us, where only your team will have access to. But once the money is inside this privacy pool, no one can see what's going on inside, how the money is moving, and so on. But on Solana, on top of this like ZK pools, and obviously we of course have KYT and AML checks, so no bad money can enter the privacy pool. We are also integrating with their confidential tokens, so which is another privacy tech, basically, where so you are not anonymous, so everyone can see what wallets do what transactions, but the amounts are hidden. So I'm sending money to you. Everyone knows that I sent something to you, but no one knows how much exactly I sent to you, which sits somewhere. This approach sits somewhere in the middle between full privacy and anonymity and full publicity. So we are also integrating our compliance stack with this technology. So the idea was to have a system that is very modular. So where privacy is needed, we are delivering both privacy part and compliance part. And where some privacy technology exists, we can just plug it into our compliance stack, and everything becomes compliant friendly. So we shouldn't say compliant per se. I sometimes use this term just as a shortcut, because obviously there is no such a thing as abstract compliance. It depends like what you have to be compliant with. Right. But for the sake of simplicity and
I like the fact that in the beginning you said compliance ready, which I think gives it like a very good term.
This is the right way to describe it.
I mean, that's clear to me. Having discussed all of that, I think, again, as we said, privacy tools, they often face criticism for, again, a part that we actually mentioned, bad actors, because again, it is a fair bit of concern. But after all, privacy can definitely be abused, and
Yeah.
with like any technology, because again, if we're going to be discussing this, we also have to look at the possible ifs and whats that happen. But that doesn't mean privacy, like should be abandoned. I think that's what people really miss.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
yeah, because like phones, encryptions, banks, everything that you're used to, even the internet itself can be misused in many ways, yet they are essential for
Yeah.
society to function. And I think that's the precedent that we're setting here.
Yeah, and it's
So,
very refreshing to see that. I think a lot of regulators become more open to the idea that privacy can be compliant.
yeah.
Because before, like privacy is bad, so it was very stigmatized. Something like Tornado Cash, oh, like this is terrible. This is just for hackers and so on. But it's like it, the fact that your car can get into an accident doesn't mean that driving should be prohibited,
Yes.
right? So it's just the wrong approach, I think, to prohibit such things. Sorry, you were asking something and I
Oh,
interrupted
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. So I was leading actually to this question because again, you're right to point out all those things because those will actually further support my question, and it's about I guess bad actors using these like privacy tools to their advantage. But what would you say to someone who says privacy tools like actually help these bad actors?
Well, it wouldn't be false, I'd say, because definitely privacy tools help bad actors. We know that with a lot of, but yeah, the thing is that with several recent hacks, I think hackers actually didn't use privacy tools per se. So they didn't use Tornado Cash or
Yeah,
Monero. They were just using some smaller blockchains, like a lot of mixing, just sending, bridging somewhere, and
yeah,
cashing out somewhere else.
making that web of transactions almost like impossible to track.
Yeah, so it just takes too much time to track everything down, and once you figure things out, the money is gone,
Yeah,
right? But yeah, obviously, privacy tools such as Monero, Tornado Cash, and others, they definitely help hackers
yeah,
to hide their money. That's why we genuinely believe that privacy has
yeah,
to be compliance friendly.
of course.
And so there are different degrees of compliance, I'd say.
Mhm.
And getting back to what we are building, we purposefully built our system in a very flexible manner, so you can do just a KYT, for example. So we are integrating with popular KYT providers like Elliptic, Chainalysis, and
Yeah,
others. So we support all of them out of the box. And so you can just get some scoring from them and say, okay, what is at this level is good to go in my privacy pool.
yeah,
Or if you are even more heavily regulated, you can go as far as create your whitelist for who can use certain privacy pool. Or you can set some KYC requirements. And this creates a high barrier to use your software, to use your product. But well, this might be the goal because again, TradFi, we see a lot of complaints about TradFi that they would love to use a lot of DeFi protocols, but they just cannot because there are not enough compliance frameworks
yeah,
around. Yeah, so they cannot, they even do not understand if they can use, and they don't want to risk.
yeah,
And one of our goals is to de-risk this and help everyone just to more companies to come on chain, because obviously everyone can see today that it's a very useful technology. So
yeah,
it's not just for geeks now, not just for degens, but yeah, you have 24/7 settlement, fast, cheap, almost instant.
yeah.
So yeah, the properties that are very valuable for any fintech company or any company doing any financial transactions. So Yeah.
One thing that mostly surprises me is the fact that the governments and the banking systems didn't use this as a basis for their base of operations, because crypto provides so much more technological advantages that you don't usually see in these old systems per se. But having touched on the financial industry, which has long treated privacy and compliance as opposites, as we discussed, and of course, privacy is about keeping information protected. I think the fact that you mentioned Zcash and Tornado Cash,
Yeah.
and all the players along those lines, I don't think like they were heavily abused by bad guys. I think like 97% of the people were actually like normal people not trying to steal something. But
Mhm.
there essentially was this like 2-3% that actually did it.
Yeah, it's just really like just a misconception
Yeah,
that privacy is only for hackers.
yeah.
Privacy is only for people who want to steal money. Well, that's not true.
But
Just
yeah,
yeah,
privacy is a
regular people.
constitutional right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. People just
Yeah.
don't want to show everything. It's now I think we're just going through this transitional phase when so we are just trying to figure out how to make things private,
Mm.
safe, compliant, uh, how to create good user experience, which is also a very big thing
Mhm.
because a lot of existing privacy stacks are very like cryptography heavy, and this creates just a lot of friction, just UX friction to use these protocols.
Mhm.
So I think we're now going through. So we builders are figuring out how to solve all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that actually like kind of answered the question that I was going to ask you about, privacy and compliance usually being framed as enemies. Well, of course, you can frame anything however you want it, but at the end of the day, if billions of dollars in transaction volumes, don't get this spotlight, like a couple hundred million being stolen, or I mean, I reached there. Actually, a couple million being stolen is like the problem for the entire system, which daily on a daily basis transacts like billions of dollars, and it shouldn't be like that. But I want to take it to a bit of a step back towards Arcane, because we've been discussing a lot of things, in the grand scheme of things. But most compliance systems, again, they rely on plain text data, and you said you don't do that. And so sensitive records are stored in, of course, these databases where operators or service providers, usually they have full access. Maybe they don't in some use cases, but often beyond what's necessary is something that they get in terms of access. And
Yeah.
this approach, of course, as we mentioned, creates risks for misuse, breaches, overreach, hacks, and many other things bad actors can do. But Arcane takes a different approach from what I heard and from what I've
Yeah,
seen
for
already.
sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so,
So for
the question is, what does Arcane do differently from a normal compliance database?
yeah. Yeah, as you mentioned, encryption and never storing data in a plain text
Mhm.
is a critical part for us,
Mhm.
and we want to make sure that our clients, the applications that use our infrastructure, are safe, right? And their data cannot leak,
Mhm.
and yeah, everything like that. So that's why we took this really seriously,
Mhm.
and we used pretty much all the best practices from TradFi on how to work with sensitive client data,
Mhm.
uh, like envelope encryption, using HSMs, rotating keys, like
Yeah.
all the infosec things that are, yeah, surprisingly. But when you read all these hack news and
Yeah.
then some like details on why what was hacked, sometimes it's just like crazy that teams in crypto just ignore regular security best
Yeah.
practices, not crypto specific best practices even, but just regular company best practices,
Yeah.
right?
Like
So yeah,
letting your seed phrase be somewhere in the open in a messenger where people can get access to your email
yeah,
and then open that messenger. And then you open up your Telegram and you have all your passwords and your saved messages. Don't do that. That's definitely
yeah,
something you should not do.
absolutely. Absolutely. So we are employing all the best practices. So I'm not saying even like we are inventing something completely new,
Yeah.
but just like think of like you hear about about blockchain protocols being hacked like every other week recently, right? And but you don't hear every day that some bank was hacked and like all
Yeah.
their credit card data leaked. Because like look, they're just following very boring, very concrete steps to prevent that. And so we are just taking the best from both worlds, from the world of crypto and the world of fintech and TradFi, and utilize this in our
Yeah.
product.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Um, I think we're going to cut it short here because we've discussed a lot of good things here.
Yeah,
Mostly the basis for privacy and compliance and how it works and how it integrates into the
yeah,
infrastructure, how it aligns with blockchains and what Arcane does. And I think this is probably going to be, like this is a start for our series. So of course, people are going to have to stay tuned for more. But I
yeah,
think what we can discuss next are things like, should crypto people use should crypto people like trust a compliance layer at all? Many different things like why not just giving regulators or auditors a viewing key, for instance? What's like the most misunderstood thing about financial privacy? And we know the attention spans are pretty short here, so we're gonna cut it short here. But then again, thank you, Max, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. We're going to come back very soon and going to discuss a lot of different things. But yeah, that's going to be it.
yeah.
Any
Thanks a lot.
final message for this episode or staying tuned for the next one, Max?
Yeah, let's stay tuned and yeah, let's just remember that privacy and compliance are compatible things, and yeah, let's build the future of finance.
All right, that sounds great, and I can't wait to be a part of that and ask you all these questions. But yeah, we'll see you
Awesome.
next time.
Thank you. Bye bye.